This is good. I'm excited about this topic because I think that conquering your board's fear of fundraising is something that we all can get into. And it's going to help people. So we got some Colorado, California, Ireland, Dublin. All right. So that's pretty cool. Chicago in the house. Some more Colorado, Michigan, Lincoln Park. Leslie, that's right. That's where I've heard of Lincoln Park. I'm like, I've heard someone from Lincoln Park. Midland, Texas. All right, Texas. I'm in South Texas. So I'm in Edinburgh, Texas. A lot of people have never heard of Edinburgh, but it's the Rio Grande Valley, Texas, down there with the little dip into Mexico. So that's where I live. Kentucky. All right. Tennessee. April. Hey, April. How are you doing? Tennessee. Okay, guys. Like I said, as people are coming in, good. I'm glad to see that you're doing good. We're going to get started here really soon. I'd like to give like 2 minutes, no more than two minutes, because we want to end at 1, and I want to be able to come off and see if you have any questions or anything like that, to give you some time for that. So thank y'all so very much. We're going to get started here. So we're going to be talking about conquer your board's fear of fundraising. And before we even get started, fundraising is the means. It is not the end. So I want you to keep that in mind. It is the means, not the end. It does not stand on its own, but you do have to mean it because it helps you fulfill the values you seek that you want to see in the world. And so that's very critical. Also, it makes people feel good to fundraise, to give money, because I won't say to fundraise, I'll say to give money. It makes people feel good to give money to a cause that they care about. When people use their credit card or they write a check, whether it's large or small, they're saying, yes, I can do this. But yes, not only are they saying, yes, I can do this, they're saying, yes, I want to do this. Every time I give, every time you give, you're saying, I want to do this. I want to support this mission, and I want to support this cause. And so you have to continually remind yourself of that, and not only yourself, but you have to remind your board members of this situation as well. So some of you are staff of one. Some of you may have staff, but if you do have staff, or if you're the founder or the CEO and you're taking on that role, it is literally your job, fundraising. But asking for donations is also the job of the board. And we have to keep that in mind. A lot of board members come on, and what we do is during the interview process, if you even have an interview process for your board, you don't tell them about the fundraising. And that's, I say, would be the first mistake. As you are recruiting board members, you need to be very honest with them that fundraising is a part of the process of being on the board. It's not just time and talent, it's time, talent, treasure, and they are a part of giving that treasure and securing that treasure. And you can't glaze over that part of the conversation when you're talking about board membership. A lot of organizations glaze over that because they're like, well, I don't want to lose a good person because we're talking about fundraising and then we're going to lose them. Well, you're setting them up for failure. If you're setting them up for failure and yourself up for failure, if you don't have that conversation very clear in the recruitment process and set that standard in that process. So with the culture of philanthropy, and we're going to be talking about that, if you're the CEO or the founder or the ED of the organization, or the CFO, the chief financial officer, or the receptionist or the program staff, it's their job too to help with the fundraising. Every single person associated with the organization has a duty to help raise funds. In the end, your love of your organization must be bigger than the fear of asking. So everybody has a role in that process. Now, asking specifically is only 5% of the fundraising process. So we're going to talk about that too, because people get paralyzed by that 5%. So I do want to talk about that as we get into this. So I used this approach for over 15 years as the CEO of a nonprofit organization. I increased my annual operating budget from $750,000 to $2.5 million, completed a $12 million comprehensive capital campaign. Now, I leave this part out, but that $12 million comprehensive capital campaign was done in 2008. And in 2008, we were in the middle of a recession. And so we were able to raise $12 million in the middle of a recession. I started and grew an endowment to $500K, and I had 180 days of cash reserve. And my organization was located along the Mexico-Texas border in the third poorest county in the United States. So I know a little bit about what I'm talking about. So if you take this in and you start to put some of these things in practice, it will be good for you. It will move the needle. I can guarantee you that it will move the needle. So today you will leave this webinar with the most common fears board members have around fundraising, tips to overcome those fundraising fears, the 5 fundraising mistakes we make with our board. And we already talked about one, not telling them during the interview process and not telling them when you're bringing them on board. It does a disservice to you and it does a disservice to them. How 100% of your board can be involved in fundraising, what a culture of philanthropy means for your organization, and actionable advice for cultivating a passion for fundraising on your board. So you're in the right place, and today's training is perfect for you if you want to learn how to help your board overcome their fundraising fears, what fundraising mistakes not to make with your board members, and how to get 100% of them to participate in fundraising. So you're worth it. For those who've been to my webinars before, start off with this. You're worth it. Close those emails, close those 20 browser windows currently open, close the door. The kids should be back in school, but if they're not, ask them not to kill themselves or each other in the next couple of hours. I don't have any kids, guys. I'm an empty nester. My baby is in college, but I have Peanut Butter and I have Gizmo, and I ask them continually, don't kill themselves. So if you hear any noise in the background, it's my dog and my cat, and they're playing. So before we get started, this presentation, as you know, is being recorded. Please chat any questions that you have along the way, and I'll answer them in the end in a Q&A. And just again, to ensure a seamless webinar, check your internet connection and close your other tabs. Sometimes that interferes with the reception. So I am Sabrina Walker Hernandez, and I studied political science and public administration. I obtained a nonprofit management certification from Harvard Business School. And for the last 25 years, I've worked in direct services. I worked in operations and in executive leadership. In 2018, I was diagnosed with cancer and felt I needed to retire. And since then, I've been helping small nonprofits, staff and board build relationships that convert into more donations. Now, a lot of people ask, why do I keep in there about cancer? And I say that is the impetus of me starting my company, Supporting World Hope. Being a nonprofit professional is very stressful. And both of the cancers that I had were stress related. So yeah, I was able to accomplish all those things, but it was stressful in the process, which led to an unhealthy lifestyle and path for me. And so what I want to do is provide these webinars and my Facebook group and several other things so that, so that you don't have to have that experience. I have 25 years of knowledge, documents, all kinds of things. And so I willingly share those. I have a VIP resource library that you got access to when you signed up for this webinar. A password should have been emailed to you. And if it was not, it's Supporting World Hope, all one word together, and with the capital S, capital W, and capital H. And in that, you will find sample board documents, marketing documents, policies, and other documentation, resource development documentation that you can use and have access to. So what do? I do workshops, especially around board education. I do board retreats, webinars, coaching, and consulting. And so I am using everything I've learned to get you there faster, because my whole goal is, again, to share the information that I have and share what has worked for me along this path and along this journey, so that you don't have to stress out as much, and that you have a resource that you can rely on. So I want you to imagine a day when all fundraising systems are in place and you're raising money even when you're sleeping. I want you to imagine a day when someone comes up to you and says, I love the work that your nonprofit is doing, and I'd like to write a check right now. Imagine a day when fundraising has become easy and fun, and you always have enough to fund your mission. It is possible, and I want you to imagine that. So here's the one thing that I know. It is not about you. So I'm saying that to the board member, and I'm saying that to the person that's here that has that fear and apprehension of asking for money. It is not about you. And sometimes it's hard to hear. So if you're going to be in this business, you have to get over being afraid to ask. If you don't, you'll never succeed in this business. And this is a business. Nonprofit, 501c3 is just a tax designation, but you are in a not-for-profit business. And in order to make your business work, you have to get over that fear of asking. And so your love, again, for your organization must be bigger than your fear of asking. So keep that in mind as we move forward. So how do you fund your nonprofit? What is fundraising? What is that process? And I like to explain this, and I think this eases people's soul of just a little bit. But fundraising is 5 steps, 5 stages, for lack of a better word. And we always, when we think about fundraising, we always, that fear comes up with stage 4, which is the ask, right? And that's only 5% of fundraising. And so I really, although we're talking about asking today, I really want you to be aware of all the stages of fundraising, because this is really going to help you and your board members focus in on what fundraising is. And by the time you get to stage 4, it'll be easier. So stage 1 is identifying potential donors. And stage 2 is qualifying those potential donors. So that's about 20% of fundraising. So how do you identify potential donors? Everybody asks that question. You can do it the good old-fashioned way. And the good old-fashioned way is you have those social magazines that you go through, and you see the people that are out and about, and you write down their names, and you see the list of who gave to what gala, or who gave to this and who gave to that, and you write down those names. So you identifying those people. Or you can do a wealth screening. And a wealth screening is you pay about $2,000. You send them names of people in your community, or based on a certain zip code or whatever you want to do. And they'll send you back a list, and it'll say, you know, this person is an A or B or C. And what that means is if they're A, depending on the wealth screening source that you used, mine was categorized by A, B, and C. They'll say this person is worth $1 million. This household is worth $250,000 to $500,000. This household is worth $100,000 to $250,000. So you can actually pay to do a wealth screening, or, like I said, do it the good old-fashioned way: newspaper, social magazines, look at the thank you ads. I like to go to galas and I collect their little pamphlets, you know, and it has everybody up there who they say thank you, who made this event possible. That's what I like to do until I got the $2,000 to do a wealth screening. That's what I did to create my list. So I identified those people along with my board members. My board members floated in certain circles, and they will put names on the list. So once you do that, once you identify, which is about 10%, then you qualify. So just because they are givers in their community doesn't mean your mission is going to resonate with them. So you qualify these people. If you are a literacy organization, do you think literacy is a part of their passion? You look around, you see what else they're supporting. You have a conversation. If it's youth is that their passion? And you narrow down the qualify. So just because they have money doesn't mean that or just because they're givers, because I'm a giver. I don't have a lot of money, but I am definitely a giver. But it doesn't mean that your mission resonates with me. So there's missions around veterans, there's mission around homelessness, there's missions around animals, there are missions around youth development. For me, if you were doing a research on me, although I'm a veteran, I don't support a lot of veteran organizations. My true passion is youth development, especially youth development that focuses in on high school or graduation or getting kids to college. And you have to qualify people based on that. You hear that, April? That's my passion. So you have to qualify people based on that and make sure that their passion resonates with your organization mission. And then stage 3 is cultivation and building the relationship. Now that's 60% of the fundraising process. Getting to know the donor, getting those meetings, setting up those meetings, taking them out to lunch, inviting them on tours, inviting them to your events, cultivating them, building that relationship. That's 60% of the fundraising process. If your board does this right, you and your board does this right, then the ask will be easy. And what I have learned is if you do cultivation right, you don't even have to ask if that's what their fear is. You'll just start receiving checks in the mail. That has happened to me on a number of occasions. So if you do that 60% right, well, actually, if you do the 20, get the right people, you do that 60% right, you get a relationship with them, you let them know about your mission, it becomes, invite them to the events, get your client in front of them, the tours, if you have a competition, they become a judge. If you do a scholarship and they read the essays as a part of that reward to determine who's going to get that scholarship, all of those things are cultivation moments. And if you do that right, then sometimes you don't even have to go into the ask. They will start sending money. But stage 4 is the ask. And that's where when you get your board members and you're saying fundraising is a part of this, that's immediately where your mind goes. Everybody's mind goes to the ask. That is only 5% of the fundraising process. So when you are afraid to talk to board members about fundraising, don't be afraid to talk to them about fundraising. Explain to them that 60% of fundraising is cultivation. 20% is identifying and qualifying. Only 5% is the ask. And then the remaining 15% is saying thank you. These are all the different roles that your board members can play in the fundraising process. And so if you adopt this, it's not even an adoption. This is how fundraising works. But if you understand that that is how fundraising works, it will help you as well. And it will help you have that conversation with your board members or even your potential board members about fundraising, right? So I just want you to be aware of that because your board members can play a role in each of these stages. And I will say this, I had 21 board members, and out of the 21 board members, I had 3 ladies who were fearless in making the ask. So out of 21, I only had 3 people who were willing to go in and make that ask. And so it is okay. As I started out at the top, a lot of times it's a staff or the founder who will say, will you make a contribution of $1,000 to our organization? The board member is there with you, but you're the one who utters those phrases for some reason, and it's okay. As I said, as I will get into this, we're all apprehensive when it comes to asking money, but you have to get over it because it's not about you. It's about your client. It's about your mission. It's about all of that. And it's bigger. Your love for your organization is bigger and then that apprehension. So let's move on. So what are the most common fears board members have around fundraising? So how many of you, show of hands, you can do the little icon, get nervous and anxious or feel awkward when you ask for money? I know I do. And it's not unusual. Even those who've had a long careers in nonprofit development, like myself, are terrified of making face-to-face fundraising asks. After 25 years, I still get anxious. I still feel anxious. So 2 participants raised their hand. I think there's a lot of more anxiety out there, but thank you. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, JC, for being brave and answering that. But I too, after 25 years, I still feel anxious. So it's okay to talk anxious. It's just that you have to overcome that anxiety. And the only way that I've overcome that anxiety is I do a little pep talk before I go in. And I say, it's not about you, Sabrina. It's not about you. It's about your client. And for me, my client was youth. And it's about the kids. The kids deserve this. They deserve what this ask can make available to them. And so again, it's not about you. It's not about you. And I go in and I do what I have to do. And so the most transformational asks are made face-to-face. So face-to-face asks are the most transformational. Now, a lot of organizations put a value on face-to-face ask, right? So for my organization, and this is something you're going to have to do as well. For my organization, if we wanted $500 or above, we did face-to-face ask. So face-to-face ask is the most transformational. So not to knock social media ask, not to knock text ask or email ask or any of those, but face-to-face ask, if you get a face-to-face ask, you're 85% more than likely to get the gift. And so for us, our threshold again was $500 and above. If we were going to ask for $500 and above, it was going to be a face-to-face ask. So in doing those face-to-face asks, we really focused in on philanthropy and not fundraising. And when you focus in on philanthropy, your board is a shift in feeling from a negative to a feeling positive, because philanthropy really focuses in on the relationship. So remember, again, that 60%, we were building these relationships with these donors, and we knew these donors by the time we got to the point of doing a face-to-face ask. So we really focused on building relationships and building that commonality between the organization or the board member and the potential donor. So let's talk a little bit about philanthropy. The word philanthropy translates from the Greek to mean love of humankind. So when you're thinking, they're asking you to make that shift of thinking philanthropy and not fundraising, which really is based on relationships. So, and when you dig down to your love of your mission and you speak from your heart, there's nothing to be afraid of. No one would think you're a terrible actor because you won't be acting. That was my mantra, if you remember, before I go into a meeting. It's not about me. It's not about me. It is about the kids that I serve. And go in and just tell them how great the kids are that you serve, what you could do with their gift, what impact their gift would make. And people will see that passion, and that will translate in that meeting. And it will not be a negative experience. It will actually be a positive experience. And so that's what you call the culture of philanthropy. That means everyone in the organization, from the janitor to the president of the board, understands that philanthropy and fund development are critical to the organization's health, and that everyone, both the janitor and the board president, has a role in the process. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. If you're doing fundraising the way it's intended to be, and your board members are inviting people in for tours of your facility, or inviting people in, even on a Zoom, to be exposed to your organization, that is great. But let's say that you invite them in on a tour, and their first interaction is with because this happened to me, y'all. Their first interaction is with a cranky janitor who just mopped the floor, and they make the donor feel horrible because they stepped on their wet floor. Well, it doesn't matter that the board president got them to come in on a tour. Their experience has been dealing with this cranky janitor. So that janitor is responsible also for fundraising, because everyone that comes through the door, you need to be nice to them. Same thing if you had a receptionist. Same thing if you're on the Zoom. If you're on a Zoom, a presentation about your organization and there's no interaction, there is, like when I first came on, I said, you know, guys, we're going to wait a few minutes. Tell me where you're from. But imagine if I had come on and just was total silence, didn't acknowledge anybody, didn't say, hey, where you're from. Let's start this light banter. Let's do this. And there was total silence. It would be uncomfortable. And so everybody, every interaction is a part of building that culture of philanthropy. So don't forget that as you're talking about the ask. So here are the 4 basic fears that board members have, or that I would say any human has. They have the fear of begging for money. So in our culture, money is taboo. We don't like to talk about money, but fundraising is not about the money. So think about it. No one gives your organization $1,000 of their hard-earned money because they have nowhere else to put it. It's not about the money. It's about what you'll be able to do with their money. It's all about the impact. So what you're doing is you're asking for the money, but to make an impact. So you're not begging. Again, you are not begging. You're giving the donor an opportunity to invest where their values align. So I'm passionate about youth. So if you ask me for money for youth development, you're giving me an opportunity to invest where my passion aligns. And that's how you have to go into this thinking about it. And that's how you have to train and educate your board members to think about it. You have to get rid of that 10-cup mentality of fundraising. Oh, give me what you can spare. Here's the 10-cup. I'm a lowly nonprofit, and whatever you can spare for my nonprofit will be so appreciated. You have to get rid of that 10-cup mentality. I used to have board members that say, okay, I'm going to go out and beg for us. And I'm going, nope, you're not begging. You're giving people the opportunity to invest where their values align. So keep that in mind. It is very critical. The other thing that keeps board members from fundraising is their fear of looking stupid. So they feel like they don't know every detail of the program, and you know that they don't want to look stupid because they won't know how to answer a donor's question. And I think that that's just nonsense, because even as a program person or a CEO, sometimes you don't know all the answers, right? And that's okay that you don't know all the answers. What you're going to do, and the best thing that you can do, because I've been in a situation as well, is you say, you know, that's a great question. I don't know the answer, but I'll definitely find out for you and get right back to you. Or if you like, I can set up a meeting with our program director to answer that question. But the key to that is I'll get right back to you. And you make sure that you get back to them. And the other key to that is when you're on a visit, and we're going to talk about that later, do not send a board member on a visit by themselves. It always needs to be 2 people. And that's for also the psychology of the donor. The meetings go better when there's 2 people. A board member and a CEO, or perhaps a board member, and in some cases, a resource development person. If you happen to have a resource development person, most of the time, the resource development person don't attend those meetings though, but they support those meetings by making sure you have all your materials available, making sure the CEO and the board member has all their materials that they're going to be talking about. So the fear of looking stupid, remember, they feel like they're begging. There's a fear of looking stupid. And so you have to make sure that you let them know that that's nonsense, that we don't all know the answers, and they won't go on a visit by themselves. And then there's the fear of rejection. We all have that. You know, this ties back into that feeling of begging. And all I can say is, remember, you're not asking for yourself, you're asking for those that you serve. And you go into the meeting imagining that your nonprofit is exactly what that donor is looking for. And if the prospect potential donor says no, that's okay. No means not this opportunity. No could mean not this particular program. No could mean not until I know more about your organization. No could mean not until I trust your organization more. No could mean not until I talk to my spouse. No can mean a lot of things. And so just because you hear a no, that is not the end of the journey. If you get a meeting with someone and they say no, it's okay. You treat them the same as if they gave a gift. You send a thank you note, thanking them for their time. You continue to send them your newsletter. You continue to cultivate them because they're not where they are. They're not where they need to be to make that gift right now. And if they say, you know what, not until I talk to my spouse, what you do is say, that is great. When can I call you? Or when can I, what's the best follow-up time to call you? Give something specific from that visit. And if it's just a no, like I said, it's not this opportunity. You haven't cultivated enough. You need to go back to cultivation and you need to see what that donor really is passionate about. And so fear of public speaking. So when you are doing these face-to-face asks, it is very much like public speaking. And a lot of people have a fear of public speaking. And it's really funny. I found this and it says, this is a number one on the book of list of top 10 fears. Death is way down at number 7. So I guess people would rather be in the casket than to deliver the eulogy. So that's why I say I only had 3 board members who really were okay with making that ask, speaking out. And other than that, it was usually me. So you just fake it till you make it. You don't walk into the door saying, I know I'm probably the last person you want to see. I don't do that. Or thinking I'm going to twist their arm to donate. You walk in the door with a smile on your face. You walk in the door, it says, hi, how are you doing? So glad, we can sit down and meet and talk about this. And you get those negative thoughts, those ants out of your head, those negative thoughts. And you go in with a positive mentality. You're not going in thinking, oh, I have to go in here and twist their arm to make a donation. That is not what you're doing. And so the antidote to the fear is education. And you can address the fears by teaching your board and anyone else how fundraising works and what motivates donors and etc. So you remember how I started out with the 5 stages? Teach your board members about those 5 stages. Adopt that for yourself, and that will help ease that fear. And so as we move into this, I just wanted to share 10 facts and tips to help overcome that fear of fundraising as well, outside of education and adopting that fundraising process. Here's some other tips that I wanted to share with you. The first thing you have to do is you have to make your own stretch gift. So I was a CEO of an organization, and I can easily say, I work 50 hours a week. I do this, I do that. You already got my gift of time, but I'm the CEO of the organization. And the same thing with the board. You are the first realm. You are the family of this organization. Staff and board are the family of this organization. And so you need to give not only your time and your talent, you need to give your treasure as well. So it will remind you how good it feels to give. It will also allow you to invite potential donors to join you in contributing to the cause. You can legitimately ask anyone else to give, because you have given. And if you haven't given, it's hypocritical for you to go out and ask others to give, because you are the family. And I'm not talking about time, and I'm not talking about talent. I am talking about treasure. I don't want you to confuse those 3 things, treasure. So for me, my board members' gifts was $500 a year annually. That's where we put it at. Some boards are $1,000, some boards are at $10,000, but ours happen to be at $500 a year. And some boards are lower. I know some boards that are 50. I know some boards that are 100. But whatever that is, for me, when I was the CEO of my organization, ours was $500, and I gave $500. And I made it a very public show at the board meetings to say, here's my annual contribution of the $500, which actually spurred others to go ahead and write their checks or give their credit cards. So first and foremost, make your own gift, because when you do get those face-to-face meetings, it is very easy for you to say, join me in giving to the organization. You know, I give my treasure, I give money to this organization because I care about it. And so that's going to make it easier in that conversation. Fake it until you make it. You've heard this before. We're faking it until we make it. You got to visualize success. You got to practice asking. Start with something you know you can get. So if you have to get, really to the foundation and the ground level, and asking is really a challenge for you, then ask for a refill of water at a restaurant. You know, try returning the dish and asking to take it from your bill. I actually have a hard time with that. I was like, no, it's okay. It's okay. I didn't like it, but it's okay. Try that. Finally, ask for something you know you want. You will not get. Shoot for the moon. You won't get it, but you'll get yourself used to and if you get it, it's going to build your confidence. And so you're looking for little wins that's going to build your confidence, to build you up as you go in and you make these asks. So fake it until you make it. Remember that you're just trying to make the world a better place. You all got into this business of not-for-profit to make the world a better place. And there's no profession more honorable than that. And sometimes you get tired, and sometimes you get stressed, and sometimes you want to throw in the towel. I know that because I've been there on many of days. There are days when you're like, I cannot do this anymore. This is too hard. But remember, it's about the mission and it's about the client. So remember again that you are just trying to make the world a better place. And that's not just you, that's you and your board members. They got on this board for a reason. Now you have to remind them why they got on the board. And one of the ways that you can remind them of why they got on the board is to start each of your board meetings out with a mission moment. And that means the mission moment is when a client comes in at the top of your agenda and tell how the organization has impacted them. And if you're doing virtual meetings or and you don't have that opportunity to have clients come in, just pick up your phone and record a video or have a client join via Zoom. But those mission moments make a difference because it's going to allow your board members to have that passion for that organization, to be able to associate a name and a story. And if you meet 12 times a year, that's 12 stories that your board members have that they can use when they're fundraising or out in the community. They can tell about Sabrina, or they can tell about, Sarah, who did this and talked about this. So that's a simple thing that you can do. Start your board meetings out with a mission moment, and that's going to help inspire them. Know that givers give, and you let go of any guilt. You are brilliant and amazing, but you would never trick anyone into giving money. You just can't do that. So let yourself off the hook if you're feeling like people won't be able to say no to you. People will say no. We've already talked about that. Don't take it personal. They will say no. Don't take it personal. Let go of the guilt. People who want to give will give. People who are givers will give. That's why the stage 1 and stage 2, the qualifying, the identifying and qualifying and cultivating, that 80% is so important. Because if you do that 80% right, by the time you get to the meeting, you're 85%. 85% you're going to get a yes. Okay. But that still leaves some room for people to say no. But givers will give. So let go of that guilt. And just because they say no, you don't take it personal. So this is the one I like. So you got to know that giving is good for your health. So there's a study out there, and if you want to get this book on Amazon, it's The Paradox of Generosity. Giving we receive, grasping we lose. And it was a comprehensive study on Americans and their giving habits and how they show generosity. And this study showed that generosity coincides with happiness, good health, avoidance of depression, and a sense of purpose in life, and a sense of personal growth. Donors are in fact happier than the rest of the population. They are 43% more likely to say that they are very happy than non-donors. So I always say this: asking is a privilege. You are spreading joy and you are spreading happiness, because you, by asking, you allow those givers to give, and allowing those givers to give makes them happy. You don't have to take it from me. There's a whole book out there on this. I know that I get a sense of joy out of giving, and it is good for the health. So keep that in mind when you are speaking with your board members, when you're talking to your board members. I even encourage you to use this webinar as a part of your board education, so that they know that this is something that they are doing a service to. So remember that being asked is a welcome part of the donors' lives, and it makes them feel important. I remember the first time I served on a board, and I gave my major gift, because for me, a major gift for me and my income level is about $500. That's a major gift for me. And I started out and I joined the board, for Boys and Girls Club of America's professional association. And I remember when they asked me for my gift, and I remember thinking, wow, they really think that I have my crap together, that I'm able to give $500. Now, what I did was, at the time, I was like, sure, I will give $500. Can I make it in 2 payments? I did say that. Can I do $250 this quarter and $250 the next quarter? And it was like, we're perfectly fine with that. And that kind of spurred me on for my board. And so here's a little tip that I would give to you. Offer people ACH. ACH is the automatic draft from your bank, right? I encourage ACH, not credit card, because credit cards expire. Once the credit cards expire, then you got to hunt down the donor, renew it, do all that. But if you offer ACH and monthly withdrawals, then that's just going to be easier, because now I give that same organization. After a while, I set up an ACH for them, and they took out, I think it was like $40 something a month to get to the 500. I don't remember. And so it comes directly from my bank account. When I left that board, even when I retired from Boys and Girls Club, that ACH is still going. 1, I'm too lazy to go in and cancel it. 2, it hasn't had an impact on me. I haven't had any checks bounce or anything like that. And it's a good cause, so I continue to give. And I've learned that offer people ACHs. If they sign up for the ACH, it is monthly giving, and it will, even when people leave your board or transition off your board, or when people, they just forget about the ACHs. So that's another little tip that I've learned along the way. If they take your visit, there's an 85% that they will make a gift. Remember, I said, if you do the identifying, qualifying, and the cultivating well, and they take the meeting, then you're 85% getting the gift. What's the hardest part is getting the visit, right? You're doing the qualifying, you're cultivating. The hardest part is getting the visit. It can take 7 to 10 tries to get a visit. But once you do have that, the likelihood of securing that gift is 85%. So if you do cultivation really well, and they know you and they get to learn your organization, you pick up the phone and you say, I'd like to set up a meeting to talk to you about how you can further support our organization. If you get that meeting, 85% chance that you're going to get that gift. Now, it may take 7 to 10 times to get that visit. It might be getting the right person to pick up the phone and make that call, the right board member to say, hey, we want to set up a meeting with you to talk about how you can further support our organization. That's where the strategy comes in. That's the hard part, is getting that visit. So you have to make sure that the cultivation is being done well to get that visit. And so rehearse. It's a little awkward. I used to do this with my board. but it does work. So script the visit and rehearse it with a colleague, rehearse it with your board. As a part of my board meeting, we would do these rehearsals. So practice makes perfect. You use the board meetings to have your board members practice, and they practice every aspect of the ask. So you practice objections, you practice the actual conversation, you practice, how to graciously overcome some of the objections, and how you'll frame the ask and who's going to make the ask. And it's ideal for 2 people from the organization, preferably the executive director, the CEO, the founder, and a board member to attend an asking meeting. But as a part of my board agenda, 20 minutes of board education was designated, and we would do practice. And what happens if the donor says no? And what happens is then you practice out the redirection of that. And they say, even one of the examples was, well, I'm currently giving to this organization. And then you just say, I understand that. So how important it is to support organizations that do this and this. And we're here to talk about this organization, and we want to know, would you be willing to support this mission? So there's lots of ways when you practice that you can redirect and get the conversation flowing in the way that you want to. And number 9, you do your homework. Again, that's cultivation, and you learn everything you can about the donor you're calling on. Some people say that's creepy. I don't think it's creepy. Look, I look at LinkedIn. I look at Facebook. I scour newspapers. I attend events that they attend. I think it shows respect for them and their time, because I don't want to waste their time if what they're passionate about does not align with our mission. And so that qualifying is very important. You want to find out if the person's passion resonates with your mission. And not only that, when you move into that cultivation phase, if it does match, it'll quickly build on that relationship, because you'll have some discovery questions that you're going to be talking to them about, and they're going to be connection over that passion and that cause. And so do your homework. And know that your job is not, this is very hard for nonprofits, it is not to impress the donors with how great you or your organization is. Your job is to let the donor impress you. And this is one of the biggest mistakes that nonprofits and fundraisers make on an ask, is they talk too much. They talk too much. And the golden rule is you aim to talk 25% of the time, and you listen 75% of the time, whether that's on an ask or that's on a get to know you breakfast or lunch, and you're just taking the donor out. You're there to discover what makes that donor ticks, right? And you're not there to talk about how great your nonprofit is and how many members they serve and blah, 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 blah. Because what you're doing is you're telling the donor, oh, we're great. And they're sitting there thinking, so if you're so great, then why do you need me? If all your problems are solved, then what role do I play as a donor? Because the donor wants to be a hero. They want to solve a problem. And that was a hard shift for me as well in this fundraising journey. Again, I was youth development, and I would go out, oh, we serve 13,000 kids and we have 7 units. And, I would just go on and on about everything that we do. So big mistake. Shut up, Sabrina. What about, you service 13,000 kids, but there's 32,000 kids in the school district. What about those kids that you're not serving? So talk about those. Talk about where your goals are, what you want to expand to, and then shut up and let the donor talk. 25% is you talking, 75% is them talking, and you discovering what they're passionate about and what resonates. So how do you hold your board members' feet to the fire? Everybody always wants to know that. So you ask every board member to complete a board commitment form. You ask each board member to check off those tasks in which they're willing to become engaged around fundraising. And then you don't forget to suggest some strategies in each area. So here we go. So let me give you some examples. So under the example of identifying and qualifying, that means your board can serve in that capacity as being a door opener. So I had a board member, and for those who attended my trainings, I love talking about Millie, so sorry if you've heard the story, but I had a board member and she said that she would never ask for money. And let me tell you, she didn't. But she was able to raise millions of dollars because she was a door opener. She was an identifier and she was a qualifier, and she made sure I got introduced to the right people. And then we built that relationship that resulted in $1 million gifts. So when you have your board commitment form, it says, I will introduce you to people, right? And then you moved over to cultivation, those people who are willing to take people out to lunch, those people that are willing to invite people in to be a guest judge, to go on a tour, to do those things. You have that there too. And they can check that off. And you don't forget to suggest strategies. So people who are willing to do cultivation, you might say, I'm willing to host a house party, or I'm willing to host a Zoom informational session. So suggest those strategies for each area. And then for those who are willing to make the ask, that's pretty clear. They're willing to go on that ask, and they're willing to make the ask. And then for those who are in the recognition and the thank you phase, you might put up there, I'm willing to do thank you cards, or I'm willing to make phone calls to the donors. So you have those options for your board members, and you have them sign a board commitment form. Now you're saying, look, I can have them sign commitment forms all day long. And yes, you can have them sign commitment forms all day long, but you have to hold them accountable. And so with my board, we talked about it. We had a chart at the beginning of the board packet that said, you know, these board members have done this or this or this. And also we bought the actual commitment form out on a quarterly basis and talked about it. So you do have to put systems in place where you're going to talk about it. And not because your board members don't want to help, it's because they're human and they work and they have jobs and they have, you know, other commitments, and they just forget. And it's good to be reminded of those things. So what I'm going to give to you as a part of this live webinar is I'm going to give you the board commitment form template and a board expectation form. So you can either take those two forms as they are, or you can mix the two and do what's best for your organization is around the documentation. And then after a board retreat, so this is an assumption, I'm assuming you're having a board retreat. If you're not, I hope you are. You ask each board member to sign up personally for one or two of the critical fundraising related jobs you may have brainstormed. So make sure someone follows up with them. Again, don't expect them to simply move forward without a nudge and support. So just because I signed up to say I'm going to be a thanker and I'm going to make phone calls, again, they need to be reminded. And make sure someone continues to follow up on each board member's progress. And you're like, we are a board. If you are you don't have a staff, that's okay. It could either be the board chair or the development committee members, but you got to make sure someone follows up with every single board member who agrees to help and clarify their intentions and plan for them to follow through. And again, like I said, it's ideal if it's a staff person, but if you don't have a staff person, a board chair, a development committee chair, you know, that responsible person on the board who will follow up with people. You just got to make sure that there's someone there to follow up with the progress. And once they follow up, if it's visiting a donor, making a call to a donor, whatever it is, that needs to be recorded. And best way that it can be recorded is in the CRM system. So let's say I'm a board member, which I am of a couple of organizations, and I go visit with a donor. Basically what I'm gonna do is we don't have a staff on the board that I actually serve on. And so we have our board chair, and I will let them know, hey, I visited with this donor, and this is what we talked about. This is what I learned about them. And then we make sure that that gets into the CRM system. If you are dealing with a board that doesn't have a staff, with our organization, the board I serve on, we all have passwords to the CRM system. That way we can go in and we can update our notes ourselves individually as board members. But if you have a staff person as a point of contact, you send the notes to them and they can update it there. And then you report back to the board members so they can see the fruits of the labor. So basically, I serve on this board that doesn't have a staff, but we have a board meeting next week. And I visited with a donor last week. And so I'm going to report that back at the board meeting. I'm going to talk about, hey, I had a great visit with this donor, potential donor. This is what we talked about. This is what I learned about. And that way that I encourage those other board members around you to, one, make their visits and do what they said they were going to be committed to doing. And it shows that, hey, I got over my fear, right? And I've started this process because I love the mission more than I fear the ask, right? And so keep that in mind. But again, follow up is so key. When you fail to follow up, you put yourself in a worse position than where you began, because your board members now feel uncomfortable at best, and they feel like they wasted their social capital and time, or worse, the prospects feel uncomfortable at best because they think the organization is incompetent. So if you have a visit, you make sure you follow up with that donor. That's one. And if the board member secures a tour of an organization or a lunch or something, you make sure you follow up, because you don't want anybody to feel like their time has been wasted. Okay. So make sure that when you do reach out, that you have a plan to follow up. So here are some suggestions. When you invite a prospect to a tour, when you invite them to an open house, when you invite them to a behind the scenes free event, or offer them complimentary tickets to your fundraiser. Of course, you're going to plan ahead to capture their contact information. You're going to ask board members who invited the potential donor to attend to make a follow-up phone call. You're going to assign a staff or a board member to make follow-up phone calls to thank them for participating, thank them for coming to the event. You're going to assign a staff or board member who made the referral to send follow-up emails, offering different engagement opportunities. So they came to your fundraising event. That's great. You make sure you send an email and say, we're also going to be having this. And we invite you to be a part of that. And you develop a plan for how you'll follow up. I don't know if you're getting this, but follow up is key. And if you don't hear back from the prospect, that you invited or contact, you do have a plan to follow up. And you reach back out to board members who invited potential donors to ask if they want to follow up further. And I'm not going to lie. It's better if staff take charge of the follow-up. But like I said, I'm a member of a board. We don't have a staff. And so it's the board's, one person on the board's job, that detail-oriented person who tracks all the tasks to remind us of what to do. And sometimes that can be a little challenging. But as a part of this webinar, you're going to get board individual fund development plan, which talks about, again, what that board member is going to do, what's going to be their role in follow-up. And you can take this document as it is, or you can tweak it. And so getting down to 2 minutes. So today I promised you the most common fears that board members have around fundraising would be addressed. The tips to overcome fundraising fears would be provided. The 5 fundraising mistakes we make with our boards. How 100% of your board members can get involved in fundraising. Hopefully you walked away knowing what is a culture of philanthropy, and some actionable advice for cultivating a passion for fundraising on your board. So here we go. You have 2 choices. You could do it yourself and fall down that Google rabbit hole, or you can fast track your results, conquering your board's fear of fundraising. And so one of the ways that I want you to do that is I want you to join the wait list. I have a summit coming up. It's called Build a Thriving Nonprofit Summit, and is coming up October the 27th through the 29th. And I just asked you to get on that wait list. It is a free summit. And this summit is going to be talking about, I hear my phone, but I don't know where it is. This summit is going to be telling you how to raise more money to increase your impact, engage your board, to help fund your mission, and build community awareness to increase your donor base. Again, it is a free summit. It's live. It's going to have 12 nonprofit expert speakers over 4 days from 10 a.m. to 1:15. And they're going to provide critical issues facing nonprofits today, again, around fundraising, board development, and marketing. So if you're looking for new strategies to grow your donor base or increase your fundraising, needing to engage your board or community awareness, looking to rebound from COVID, because I hear a lot of that, or in the early stages of developing your organization, this summit is for you. Or if you say it's just me and I don't know where to start, this summit is for you. Here's some testimonials from the summit from last year. Seriously, for reals, exceeding expectations, come through in excellence. Thank you all. We are world changers. And that was from Davida. And Denise said, my favorite workshops were the presentation about acquiring new donors and how to tell a story. I love the entire summit. So I really do invite you to attend this. Hey, April, you gave a testimonial last year. So I really do invite you to attend the summit. And I'm going to check and see if there's any questions. And then I'm going to share the documents for you. And it's 101. I didn't do too bad, right? Let's